James Chambers was the town's quiet hero. Emily Chambers, his orphaned niece, the girl he raised as his own. But behind their picture-perfect bond hid a twisted secret that ended in betrayal, horror, and a brutal murder that shocked the nation. Willow Creek was the kind of place where nothing truly bad ever happened, or so people liked to believe. Tucked between gently sloping hills and dense stretches of forest, the town was home to no more than a few thousand residents. Everyone knew everyone, and life followed a predictable rhythm. Sunday services, quiet evenings, and small-town festivals that brought the community together. People left their doors unlocked, waved at strangers, and trusted their neighbors. But beneath the surface of this perfect picture was a darkness no one saw coming. The Chambers family had lived in Willow Creek for generations. James Chambers, a man in his early 40s, was known as quiet, hard-working, and dependable. He ran a small electrical repair business and was always willing to help out around town. When his younger brother and sister-in-law were killed in a tragic car accident, the town mourned deeply. But James didn't hesitate. He stepped up and took in their only child, Emily, who was just 15 at the time. Everyone praised him for his selflessness. Raising a teenager wasn't easy, and yet James seemed to handle it with patience and grace. He became a symbol of strength and family loyalty. Emily was a bright girl, polite, shy, and full of potential. She had always done well in school and had dreams of becoming a graphic designer. After the accident, she changed. It was expected, of course. Losing your parents at such a young age leaves a wound that never fully heals. But Emily's change was deeper than grief. She stopped participating in school clubs, started skipping social events, and spent more and more time isolated. Some chalked it up to trauma, while others whispered that she seemed too dependent on her uncle. Still, no one wanted to believe anything was wrong. James was fiercely protective of Emily. He rarely let her go out without knowing where she was and who she was with. He monitored her phone and internet use and limited her contact with friends. It was all disguised as concerned care. Even, "I just want what's best for her," he would say, and people believed him. After all, hadn't he already given up so much to raise her? What no one saw or wanted to see was the manipulation happening behind closed doors. James had blurred the lines between guardian and predator. He had gained Emily's trust when she was most vulnerable and used it to control her completely. Over time, the relationship shifted from one of care to something unnatural, disturbing, and secret. Emily, still grieving and desperate for connection, didn't fully understand what was happening. By the time she did, it was too late. The house on Sycamore Lane, where Emily lived with James, always looked peaceful from the outside. White shutters, a tidy lawn, flower beds in full bloom. It was the picture of stability. But inside, a silent horror was unfolding. Emily had become a prisoner, trapped not behind bars, but inside a life built on fear, secrecy, and control. No one in Willow Creek suspected that the kind uncle who had taken in a grieving child was hiding something far more sinister than anyone could imagine. Emily's 18th birthday came and went without celebration. There were no balloons, no friends, no parties, just a quiet dinner at home with her Uncle James, who said he didn't believe in making a fuss. To the outside world, she was now an adult, free to make her own choices. But inside the walls of the house on Sycamore Lane, freedom was just an illusion. Her life was still tightly controlled, her movements monitored, her relationships discouraged, and her voice silenced. Some of her former classmates noticed the changes. Emily had always been soft-spoken, but now she barely spoke at all. She stopped showing up for art club, even though she used to love it. Her best friend, Lily, tried reaching out but was met with short, vague responses. Emily no longer replied to texts late at night or shared anything personal. When Lily once visited her home unannounced, James answered the door, smiling politely and saying Emily wasn't feeling well. The interaction left Lily uneasy. Something felt off, but she couldn't put her finger on it. At school, teachers observed Emily's fading presence. Her grades dropped slightly, her creativity dimmed, and her demeanor became detached. One teacher mentioned her concerns during a faculty meeting, suggesting that Emily might still be struggling with the loss of her parents. It was the easy explanation. Grief takes time. No one wanted to suggest anything darker, and James, ever polite and cooperative during parent-teacher conferences, always said he was doing his best to help Emily heal. Behind the scenes, things were unraveling. Emily had begun to understand the truth about her situation. What she once mistook for affection and care now revealed itself as manipulation and abuse. James was not simply a concerned uncle. He had crossed boundaries that should never be crossed. She tried, more than once, to distance herself, to reclaim her life. But each time she pulled away, James responded with guilt, threats, or tears. He would remind her of how much he had done for her. He would say she owed him everything, and she believed him, at least for a while. But something in her shifted. Emily started keeping a journal, writing about her confusion, her fear, and her growing anger. She began hiding small amounts of money, hoping one day she could escape. She applied to colleges in secret and started researching how to get help. Still, she knew that any wrong move could provoke James. He was calm on the surface, but she had seen glimpses of the rage that simmered underneath. The more distant she became, the more unpredictable he grew. Meanwhile, neighbors started whispering. One said she saw James and Emily holding hands in the grocery store, an innocent gesture perhaps, but one that lingered too long to seem natural. Another claimed to have overheard an argument through the open window one summer night. No one had proof, just unease, suspicion, doubt. But in a town like Willow Creek, where trust ran deep and confrontation was rare, no one stepped forward. And so the warnings were left unspoken, the signs ignored. Emily was slipping through the cracks, surrounded by people who cared, yet too afraid to question the story they'd been told. It was a warm August morning when Emily was first reported missing. The sun had just risen over Willow Creek, casting soft golden light on the quiet town. Most residents were starting their routines, unaware that the calm of their lives was about to be shattered. James told neighbors and friends that Emily had left unexpectedly to attend an early college orientation out of state. He said she hadn't wanted to make a big deal out of it. According to him, she had packed light, taken a bus, and promised to stay in touch when she settled, but no one had seen her leave. No one had said goodbye. Days turned into a week, and the story began to unravel. Emily's best friend, Lily, hadn't received a single text. The college she supposedly enrolled in had no record of her application. Her room remained untouched. Her favorite jacket still hanging behind the door, sketchbooks still on the desk, toothbrush in the bathroom. Even her phone, the one she never went anywhere without, was left behind on silent mode in the drawer of her nightstand. Lily went to the local police department and filed a missing person report. Officers visited James's house to ask routine questions. James was calm and cooperative, offering them coffee, answering each question without hesitation. He repeated the story he told everyone else. Emily had left on her own terms. She was tired of being controlled, tired of being watched, and she wanted freedom. His words painted a picture of a restless teenager looking for a fresh start. But the facts didn't match the narrative. Detectives began checking surveillance cameras around town. Most locations had limited coverage, but one neighbor had a motion-activated security system facing the back alley behind their house. The footage, grainy and distorted, showed James late at night on the same evening he claimed Emily had left. He was dragging a large carpet from the garage, struggling slightly under its weight. He loaded it into the back of his truck, glancing around nervously before disappearing down the road. There was no suitcase, no sign of Emily, and no bus stop visit captured anywhere. When investigators returned to question him again, James repeated his story with more urgency, this time suggesting that Emily might have run away to escape him, that she felt trapped and ungrateful. But his calmness began to crack. His answers became less consistent. A search warrant was issued for the house, and forensic teams began examining every room. Small traces of blood were found in the bathroom sink and on the edge of Emily's bedroom carpet. Just enough to raise suspicion, but not enough to confirm a violent act. The breakthrough came when police tracked James's phone data. On the night of Emily's disappearance, his phone had pinged near the edge of Black Pine Forest, a dense, remote area rarely visited except by hikers or hunters. With this new lead, authorities organized a search team. They feared what they might find, but knew they had to look. The peaceful illusion of Willow Creek was gone. Whispers turned to alarm, and neighbors who once admired James now locked their doors when he walked by. Something terrible had happened, and the truth was closing in. The search in Black Pine Forest began at dawn, with officers, volunteers, and dogs combing the dense underbrush. The forest, once known for its scenic trails and birdwatching, now carried an unsettling silence. The air was thick with tension as searchers moved slowly, eyes scanning every inch for signs of disturbed earth or discarded items. Hours passed without discovery, but no one gave up. Then, just before dusk, a cadaver dog signaled near a cluster of pine trees where the ground appeared recently turned. The team began to dig, and within moments the horror buried beneath the surface was uncovered. Wrapped tightly in a rolled-up carpet was the body of a young woman, later confirmed to be Emily Chambers. Her clothes were intact, her hands bound with electrical tape. There were no visible gunshot wounds or knife marks, but signs of blunt trauma and ligature marks around her neck pointed clearly to strangulation. The air grew still as the team stood in shock, confronted with the truth they had feared. Emily hadn't run away. She had been murdered and hidden like an object, as though her life had meant nothing. Beside her, buried in the dirt, was a torn photograph. Emily at age 15, smiling beside James on a sunny day. The kind of photo that once seemed innocent, but now held a chilling weight. Investigators knew this wasn't just a case of domestic violence or teenage rebellion gone wrong. This was premeditated, calculated, cold. Back at the police station, James was arrested without resistance. His expression was blank, as though the weight of the truth had finally sunk in. At first, he denied everything. He claimed he had no idea what happened to Emily. He insisted that she must have snuck back and staged the entire scene to frame him. But the evidence was overwhelming. His fingerprints were found on the tape used to bind her. Soil samples from his truck bed matched the grave site, and the footage from the neighbor's camera eliminated any other possibility. Under pressure, James finally broke. His confession was disturbing in its detail and tone. He admitted that the relationship between him and Emily had become complicated, that she had grown distant and started threatening to leave. She had told him she wanted to go to the police, to expose everything he had done. James claimed he acted in panic, that he didn't mean to kill her. He said he just wanted to stop her from ruining his life. But the methodical burial, the lies he told for days, and the attempt to erase all traces of her presence said otherwise. The confession shook the town. The man they had once admired, the man who had raised a grieving child, was now exposed as a predator and a killer. People questioned everything. How they missed the signs. How such evil had hidden in plain sight. James was held without bail, and the community prepared for a trial that would uncover even more disturbing truths. The final pieces of the puzzle were coming together, but the damage had already been done. Willow Creek would never be the same. James Chambers stood trial 6 months after his arrest, and by then, the entire nation had heard Emily's name. The courtroom was filled with reporters, grieving townspeople, and those who still couldn't believe the man they once respected had committed such a monstrous act. The trial lasted for weeks, each day peeling back another layer of the horror that had unfolded behind closed doors. Prosecutors presented damning evidence, photos, texts, the security footage, and most painfully, excerpts from Emily's hidden journal. In her own handwriting, she had described years of fear, confusion, and manipulation. She had detailed how James controlled every part of her life, and how she dreamed of escaping the prison her home had become. There was no defense that could justify James's actions. His lawyers attempted to portray him as mentally unwell, overwhelmed by grief and loneliness. But the jury saw through the facade. James wasn't a broken man. He was a man who had exploited a vulnerable child, silenced her voice, and tried to erase her from existence when she found the strength to resist. The courtroom fell silent when the verdict was read. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, sexual abuse, and unlawful imprisonment. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Outside the courthouse, people gathered in mourning and in anger. Some cried for Emily, while others lit candles and placed flowers at the steps. The house on Sycamore Lane, once considered a place of kindness and protection, was now viewed with revulsion. No one wanted to live near it, and after months of vacancy, it was eventually demolished. In its place, the town built a small memorial garden dedicated to Emily's memory. A bench with her name engraved in it sat beneath a blossoming cherry tree, surrounded by her favorite flowers, lavender and marigolds. A plaque read, "In memory of Emily Chambers, may her voice never be silenced again." The case left deep scars on Willow Creek. Parents became more cautious, teachers more attentive, and neighbors more observant. No one wanted to be the one who missed the signs again. The tragedy served as a harsh lesson about trust, silence, and the hidden darkness that can grow unnoticed. Emily's story was shared in schools, featured in documentaries, and discussed in training programs for social workers and educators. Her journal entries, once private, became a powerful tool for awareness. She had suffered in silence, but in death, her words reached thousands. Maybe even saved others from the same fate. James now lives out his days in a maximum security prison, far from the peaceful town he once called home. He is remembered not as a hero, but as a predator who destroyed the very life he claimed to protect. Emily, though gone, left behind a legacy stronger than he ever imagined. Her courage, her fight to be free, and the truth she recorded in her final days ensured that her story would not disappear. Her voice, once silenced, continues to echo, reminding the world of the cost of ignoring what hides behind closed doors.